Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Drew Brown, and my wingman, my man, the number one guy I know, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother? Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Commander Drew Brown, and we are floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you two badass jet pilots, rumble. That other jet pilot, that other badass jet pilot, my wingman, my friend, my main man, Dr. Paul Thompson. How you doing, Paul?
I'm pretty good, Mr. Drew. I hope you're doing all right. Good to see you, and good to talk about what we're going to talk about today to show the world that while there's a lot of bad news, all the news isn't bad news. There's some good stuff going on, too.
100%, like they say, if it bleeds, it leads. Not here on the Wingman Show. If it's good, it should. All right, this first quote that we always start off with, this is from Nelson Mandela, and I just absolutely love this one. So there's Nelson Mandela, and it says, everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. Once again, everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. And Dr. Paul, I love that, because if you have purpose and you have passion towards anything and you work at it, you will accomplish that. You 100%. I believe everybody is a LeBron James in something. It's just our job to find out what that is. And when you find out and you work hard at it, you're a success. Don't you agree?
Yeah, you got to know what it is, and you have to experiment. And sometimes that requires getting uncomfortable, discovering what you want to do, getting uncomfortable. If you just live a life of comfort and have no disturbances, you're probably not going to grow. And your passion or the thing that you're really, really good at might require a few extra steps that you've just got to take. So every once in a while, just get a little bit uncomfortable. Look for something different. It may be right around the corner. You just don't know it.
Very good. Well, Dr. Paul, we have a letter. This is part 2 of this letter, and this is from Dominique Crichel, and he's in Paris, France. And so everybody listening to this, last week we did one part, and now we're doing the second part, and there's a couple more after this. But what he is saying is simple. The letter starts, and everybody, either you're going to be 55, you're 55, or you're over 55. But this letter should pertain to everybody. And just think about it. He starts off, between the age of 55 and your time of death, it is advisable to use the money you have saved. Use it and enjoy it. Don't save it for those who have no idea the sacrifices you made to get it. Always buy the best, most beautiful items to please yourself. The key goal is to enjoy your money with your partner. One day you will miss each other, and money won't bring you any comfort, so enjoy it together. Don't stress over small things. You have already overcome so many hardships in life. You have good memories and bad memories, but the most important thing is the present. Don't let the past train you. Don't let the future intimidate you. One must feel good in the present. Don't lose sight of fashion trends for your age, but keep your own sense of style. You developed your own sense of what suits you, so keep it and be proud of yourself. It's part of who you are. Always stay up to date. Read newspapers, follow the news, get online, read what people are saying. Make sure you have an active email account and try to use some of these social media networks. You'll be surprised the old friends you run into. And respect the younger generation and their opinions. They may not have the same ideas as you, but they are the future and will take the world in their direction. Give advice, not criticism, and try to remind them that the wisdom of yesterday still applies today. I love it, Dr. Paul, don't you?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's a Wingman PSA. That's great. That's so good. Probably read that every once in a while. That's something that I need to be reminded of, because you can get so caught up in the day to day and the next thing, realize, maybe I should kind of dial it back a little bit and reflect on things that have been done, the good things that have happened, not just the bad things. There's always going to be bad stuff. But that relates to what I was talking about earlier. That's part of your growth, getting uncomfortable. Some of the bad stuff's gonna happen, and you're going to overcome that bad stuff. And you're going to get better. You'll learn, you'll get better from it. It's just a part of it. But that's true. Basically, what I hear in that is that telling the older person to take some time for yourself because you spend so much time working for, worrying about, or caring for others. Again, ultimately, question I ask, if you have an older relative, older parent, and someone is not really well, and it takes a lot of effort, and you probably know this too, who cares for the caregiver when the caregiver is the one that really needs care? I just made that up, but I think it's a good question.
That's a great one, Dr. Paul. Maybe we'll put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I always said, if you don't love yourself and take care of yourself, you don't have the ability to love and take care of other people. All right, Dr. Paul, you were talking about that we always seem to hear bad news from other sources. Well, Jackie Robinson's statue was actually cut down in Wichita, Kansas, and stolen. And then they found it. It was burnt up. It was no good. It was useless. And that was the big news, that somebody cut down Jackie Robinson, who is one of my idols. I can't imagine being the first Black person to play baseball. I can't imagine. And more than that, Dr. Paul, we've talked about this. I can't imagine being Josh Gibson, who was actually better than Jackie Robinson, but he didn't have the demeanor to actually be the first person in baseball to integrate baseball. So I love Jackie Robinson. The point of this story is the statue was stolen. But how about the Wingman Show telling you this? Within a week, this little league club called League 42 had a GoFundMe. They raised $180,000 in 4 days, and all they needed was 170. They went 10,000 over. Maybe they'll make the statue a little bit bigger. But here's a story of people actually doing something good. And I didn't hear about this. We had to search for this. But Jackie Robinson will be put back in Wichita, Kansas. And the one thing I did love about Jackie Robinson, and I love about Major League Baseball, remember, Paul, that one day every year that everybody wears number 42? I think that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I mean, the umpires, every player on both sides, everybody wears 42 to commemorate Jackie Robinson, my hero. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, and people who don't know, because we have a younger group also, Jackie Robinson was the first Black baseball player in the major leagues. They used to have the Negro leagues, and apparently some fabulous players. But Jackie Robinson was chosen as the first one because he, I don't want to say met all the quals, but they thought he would be the best one by his demeanor and his athletic ability to face the hostility that he faced. So they didn't just pick anybody. We're the Brooklyn Dodgers. Once again, it's a New York reference and a Brooklyn reference for you.
You want to hear something funny about the Brooklyn Dodgers? My mother was a big-time Brooklyn Dodger fan. And the day they traded, or the day they moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, my mom never watched another baseball game. That's how much it hurt her. What do you think?
That was common. That was very common. I mean, it's kind of before my time, I think. I just remember when the New York Mets started, when they were brand new.
I do too. That's amazing. I was in a car. I actually remember this. I was in a car with my dad driving over a bridge, and I hear on the radio, we're going to have a new team in New York, the New York Metropolitans. I won't ever forget that.
Yeah, what a goofy name. Yeah, I like Shea Stadium. Enjoyed it. It was really close to LaGuardia Airport. People don't know. The airplanes are flying over all the time, and it was a very unusual place, but very enjoyable.
If the Yankees are not playing, I'm rooting for the Mets. All right, check out those badass jets we have behind us today. I have an Airbus 300. And just a quick story, that's the airplane that I flew when I came back after 12 years of not flying airplanes because of diabetes. Got my diabetes under control with food and exercise, and I came back after 12 years and I flew that Airbus right there. It's a beautiful Airbus. And Dr. Paul has a B-1 bomber behind him. What's up with that B-1, Dr. P?
That's a B-1 Lancer. You can see he's got afterburners on, very capable airplane. I think it's been out from the mid '80s. It's a bomber. It's a nuclear bomber, but it can also be supersonic. It's a supersonic bomber. It's got also variable sweep wings. And think of the F-14 or the F-111. And they come out when it's slow, and they go in when it's fast.
Dr. Paul and I used to fly attack jets, bombers, and the reason we couldn't go supersonic is because the bombs that we carried were on the outside of the airplane.
Right.
These B-1 bombers, they carry them inside so they can go supersonic, because if you take a bomb supersonic, I think it explodes.
That's not good. Plus, it's also kind of a stealth airplane. It's not as stealthy as the newest ones, but they change the shapes and they reduces the radar cross section, so it's hard to pick up. They say I think it's supposed to give the radar signature of like a sparrow or something like that.
Well, Dr. Paul, you heard of the Olympics. Well, you have a wingman that's going to have Olympic in its name, and I'm not going to say any more. You'll tell us about that later. But I'd like to thank all of you frequent flyers, and those are the people who listen to us every week. Thank you so much for listening to us. You can watch us on YouTube or TikTok, Instagram. Please write a comment, hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And we have a newsletter. We have a newsletter that comes out every week at wingmenshow.com. That's wingmenshow.com. Last week's newsletter was steps to dealing with life's ups and downs. Great newsletter. Dr. Paul and I just love putting out good information for everybody. And we also have on that flow line, we have a frequent flow line, which means you can ask us a question and we'll flow out an answer. And we have one for you this week. And it's from Roanoke, Virginia. It's a family that wrote us this time. And they first wanted to thank us for our service. And they also wanted to thank Dr. Paul and myself for being two positive role models on radio and TV that their family can look up to. And we want to thank you very much. But they wanted to ask this question: what was our scariest moment on an aircraft carrier? And I'm going to throw that to you, Dr. Paul.
Okay. Didn't have too many that were scary. I guess the first one, well, the biggest one. The biggest one would have been my very first catapult launch off the USS Saratoga. And the reason being that it was actually I remember it was a very beautiful day. We're off the coast of Jacksonville, headed to the Caribbean. It was just a perfect day, calm seas. This is going to be my first shot off the front end. And I think I was flying with the CAG, actually, who was a former Blue Angel. And so I had, a few things on my mind, wanted to do well. Anyway, line up behind the JBD, the Jet Blast Effect deflector. There was already an airplane on the catapult. There was a catapult 2. And it was an A6, one of your airplanes. It was an A6. He was going to go off before, and I was just thinking about what I had to do. So, he adds the power, and boom, he goes off the front end. And then he just sinks. I thought you're supposed to go up. He sinks. I lose sight of the airplane. I'm thinking, he's going to hit the water. I'm waiting for a big splash. There's nothing. It's quiet. And all of a sudden, about like 5 seconds later, he comes back up. He's well below the decks. And again, I'm about to go, so I'm near the end of the ship. I can't see him. He comes up, and he's flying. And he goes. And the air boss asked, 502, did you have any problem on that cat shot? The guy says, no. He was fine. And I'm thinking in my mind, I've never done this before. There's something wrong. Is there something wrong with this catapult? We're going to check this out? But then, no, the guy's giving me the come forward signal. Come on, come on. And I'm thinking like, hey, didn't you just see? I'm thinking all this stuff myself. It didn't look good. Anyway, long story short, I got shot off, flew up in the air, and kept going. But I was just wondering, is this thing really working? But I saw that. I still remember. I hadn't thought about that in, 40 plus years, 45 years. But I lost sight of it. He took off, because the thing is sitting up, 50 feet above the surface of the water. So between 50 feet and 0, he was down at least half of that. He survived, and nobody said a word. I said, "Wow." I'm thinking of this thing the whole time I'm flying, but that never happened again. Basically, with the old airplanes, you need to rotate, pull the stick back. The F-18s, they go off. I think they hold the rails or something like that. You don't touch it, you'll screw it up, which is weird. But he didn't rotate, obviously. So that was it.
Wow, that's hairy as hell for
Yep.
your first time.
Yep.
I've had more than one scary moment, so I'll just pick one out to tell you. And this was off the catapult at night. And A6s not only drop bombs, but we also were tankers, meaning we would give other airplanes in the air gas. And I was the last night tanker. So I was full of gas. And that means if you're heavy, you get a harder cat shot. I mean, it is boom. It is from 0 to 130 miles an hour in 2.6 seconds. And it's black as hell. It's like getting shot off into the middle of a basketball. So anyway, we get up on the cat. Everything's going good. I give my signal that I'm ready. I click my lights and they shoot me. And as soon as we hit the end of that aircraft carrier, getting ready to take off, boom, a dual generator failure. That means everything turned black. I am sitting in a black airplane with a black night and I see nothing. The only thing I know, and maybe this is from Harlem Survival or something, but I knew where my hand was on the stick when it went dark. And my hand was in a flying position. In other words, it was pulling back the stick in a perfect flying position. So the only thing I could do was keep my hand right exactly where it was. And so we started. I didn't know if we were going up, going down, or anything, but I had my hand on the stick, and it seemed like for a half hour, my bombardier navigator next to me was yelling, "Pull the rat, pull the rat." So a rat is a ram air turbine, and it sits down right next to the seat is a handle. So you have to pull the handle. A blade comes out of the airplane, and it starts turning, and it generates electricity. The problem is whenever you go down to pull that rat, you will move that hand that was holding the stick. I waited, I think we were at 10,000 feet when I finally pulled the rat, but I knew we were going to be alive. That's my scariest moment, Dr. Paul.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the thing is that as you're saying this, I'm thinking about technology and things. I, the modern airplanes, they look like they just leap into the air. I don't know if that's true, but it seems that way with military airplanes and civilian airplanes for sure. What you're talking about, people don't realize the catapult shot is really, really quick. You're basically in a slingshot. You said like being in the middle of a basketball, I guess, or of a football, or a dark tunnel with no lights. But there's not a lot of distance between you and the water. Again, it's a close-in thing. It's a cat shot, and a lot of forces are exerted on the airplane. And sometimes things break. I've had stuff break on cat shots, a couple serious things at night. So I understand what you're saying. It wasn't the attitude. It was like, something, a spider harness gets pulled out, nothing works, or some of it's compromised. Just right then and there. It takes 1 or 2 seconds. And that's one thing that makes, naval aviation a little bit different than other modes of flying. Sometimes things can happen really quick in less than a second, and you're just getting started. But
Well, you remember what I said, Dr. Paul? There are two kind of pilots in the world, ones that fly off of ships and ones that wish they could. All right, Dr. Paul, you know what that brings us to? A Wingman PSA from the 11 facts in life. Fact number 6, avoid these 8 deadly sins. And this is the second sin, and it is called anger. Avoid anger. And when you get angry, sit down, shut up, and do nothing for 24 hours. When you get angry, sit down, shut up, and do nothing for 24 hours. That's one of the best advices I can ever give anybody when they get really, really mad. First of all, physiologically, all the blood is rushing out of your brain into your muscles because our body, when you get angry, it thinks a wild animal's running after you or something, or you're in danger of your life. So it's shooting adrenaline and cortisol and all these chemicals into your body to give you extra strength and extra power. The problem is Cortisol is one of the main reasons that stress is the number one killer in America. Cortisol is dropped in when you start stressing. So when you're angry, believe it, and the proof is this, Dr. Paul. You ever had an argument with somebody, and after the argument, about 10 minutes after, you think of something really good you could have said during that argument? And that's just because blood went back into your brain. What do you think about anger, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, you need to take a little time off. It's easier said than done. It kind of depends on what it is. Because it's easy to make a real bad decision. There's a martial arts guy following YouTube who's very good. He has a unique approach to things. But one of his philosophies is you've got to master your emotions. And this is just from a self-defense standpoint, but really that applies to other things too, because you can, let your emotions take hold of you and go in an area that you don't want to go in. It's not right. Though at the time it seems right, but like you say, you're not thinking clearly. Your focus is really too narrow to see what's on the left, on the right, up and down and below you. And a moment of reflection might help you see the situation more clearly, especially if you're by yourself, if you're an army of one. So if you can take the time, take the time. If you got to react, then react. But going off half-cocked generally doesn't lead to good things.
And it usually will get you in trouble is what actually happens because you're truly not thinking, you're not aware. All right, Dr. Paul, you and I always encourage all of our listeners to do something we were very blessed with to do for a living, and that's travel. And in order to travel all over the world and see things all over the world, you need this one piece of identification that I am asking all of you who can hear my voice, please go get one. It's a passport. It is the number one form of identification you can have. Please get your passport. But Dr. Paul, I'm going to give you a little test. There are 10 countries that have the top passports in the world. Can you give me 3 of them who have the best passports, meaning that you can travel to more countries with that passport than another passport? You want to give me 3?
Okay, well, I'll start with the US as one. Oh, how about England 2, 3 will make it Japan.
Very good. You got number 2, and that was Japan. Sorry, Dr. Paul, America is not on the list.
Really?
But what's really funny is that tied for first are 6 countries, and they have 194 visas allowed to 227 countries. In other words, you can get into 194 countries with these passports out of 227 destinations. And those 6 are Singapore, Japan, Germany, Italy, Spain, and France. And believe it or not, in second place, it's tied with 4 countries. And those 4 countries are Finland, South Korea, Sweden, and Austria. America's not even on the top 20, actually. But it means that you can actually visit more countries than any other country. I just think that's some good, the gouge we give, that's just shit you need to know. Well, this is some shit you need to know. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I agree. And to your advice, go out and get your passport if you're an American citizen. If you're under the age of 16, it's good for 5 years. If you're over the age of 16, it's good for 10 years. It's a little paperwork involved. They used to do it at the post office. Now you can do it online, actually. I just renewed mine a couple months ago. Not much of a hassle at all. You got to go through little stuff, online. You can do it probably in 5 minutes, cost you a few bucks, but it's well worth it. Go somewhere different, see something. A lot of Americans don't have passports. They've never gone anywhere internationally. Money, fear, whatever. Just go to Canada. See something a little bit different. Save up. So if you're over 55, whatever, never done anything, this would be a good time to try.
It is a wonderful world out there. And don't look at television and movies to actually think of what the world is like. You need to go see it yourself. It is a wonderful world with wonderful people out there. And I have some good news for you. This is some gouge that you really like. We just had a couple of very famous people have prostate cancer. And this news is amazing. But they say exercise can decrease the possibility of prostate cancer by 35%, Dr. Paul. 35%. So if you're exercising, eating right, and doing what you're supposed to, you can possibly avoid that prostate cancer by 35%. Because they said all men at one time or another are going to get it. But I'd like to avoid it as long as possible. Don't you think, Paul?
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how many things are helped with exercise? How
That's
many
right.
things? I mean, this isn't one of them, but this is like everything. Again, get up and move. It's not, is that going to be 100% cure? No, but put as many things in your basket as you can. So why not, definitely do it. And the prostate cancer detection stuff is that's getting better. It's caught in early stages. It's probably about 90, almost 100% curable or preventable and curable. Yeah, some famous people have come down with it recently. Uh, but yeah, if you live long enough, everybody's going to get some tinge of it.
Something, right? If
Yeah,
you live long enough, everybody's going to get something.
there's going to get something. Yeah, IAS. Some guy said IAS. It's always something.
Yes, it's always something. It's always something. All right, Dr. Paul. Remember, I was talking about the wingman you're going to give us today, and I said something about Olympic. You want to tell me about this Olympic wingman or wing people that we have?
Yeah, kind of Olympic. Well, you remember some time ago we were talking about Mother Nature being really really tough and really really treacherous. We were talking about getting out of riptides, and you need to like swim horizontal to the shoreline to get out of that current. Well, here's a situation where sometimes you can't go horizontal, but we're not talking about current. We're talking about the winter wonderland. There's two young men, Lauren Ennis and Ben Erskine, were snowboarders. They were snowboarders in a place called Palisades Ski Resort. It's in Olympic, California. That's the Olympic Park. And they're doing their skiing, but the weather was really, really bad. They're going up on the chairlift, and people were coming down in the chairs, coming the other way, saying, "Hey, it's not good." But they figured, well, the chairlift is still operating, so let's go up. So they went up, and they're coming down, and apparently it is pretty bad. They get started, and then they realize there's an avalanche that's coming behind them.
Wow.
They can't get out of the way. They're trying to go on these boards, and they get some distance down. It's like way up Black Diamond ski runs, which are tough runs, and they get covered in snow. Miraculously, they were able to dig themselves up individually. They were not that far from each other, but they were a distance away. Some people are not so fortunate. The thing was, they survived, but they both heard people near them who were buried under snow. They couldn't see them, and they said, where are they? And they realized they were the first responders. Nobody else was up there. There's no ski patrol. There's nothing. So individually, they both dug out. One was a woman, and another was a man who was trapped, and basically saved their lives. This is long before any ski patrol came. So they got them down. They made it safely. Unfortunately, there was a man who was killed in that avalanche. And in cases where you can't get out of it, the thing is not to be there. So those avalanches can be set off by, usually loose snow. And when they come, they just accelerate and they kill people from around the world. I guess there was no real warning in this case. It just got worse and worse and worse. So these guys survived, and I think I saw a story on them on the Sacramento TV news. So they were being lauded as heroes, and they just said, we just saw somebody in trouble. So we go from almost being killed ourselves to two first responders that saved two other people, which is a good story. And they said everybody was skiing the next day.
Wow.
They talked about the importance of having avalanche transmitters. I never heard of that before, but you can get your own little transponder, a beacon, and it'll help people locate you if they come to search you. It's like the beacons we have in the airplanes. They can track you on radar. Well, you can be tracked by rescuers with these beacons. So it's good to invest in one and make sure the batteries work. I would definitely do that, especially if you're going in the backcountry skiing. So those are our two wingmen, Lauren Ennis and Ben Erskine, Olympic, California.
That's wonderful. Great story. And boy, could you imagine an avalanche coming behind you and you're trying to beat it in a snowboard? And what happens is the snow covers you up so fast that you die from asphyxiation. You actually die because you can't breathe because of all this snow. And the snow is really heavy. So it's not so easy to just dig yourself out. Well,
Right.
Dr. Paul, anything you and all our listeners, anything you guys think is beautiful, anything you and our listeners, anything that you think is important, and dear God, anything that you and our listeners, anything that makes you happy, may you have that today, and may you have that forever. I pray for peace.
I pray for peace too. And we appreciate all those who listen, like, and subscribe to us. Share the message, say something good to somebody today. Always be your best, do your best, and we will see you next time.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and refer to use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.